everyone. Welcome to Here We Are, Brattleboro's community talk show. I'm Wendy O'Connell, and our guest today is Greg Worden. Greg is a true community advocate. He served on many boards and local organizations, including the Chamber of Commerce, Brattleboro Select Board, and Vermont Arts Council. And he helped to develop Gallery Walk and Building a Better Brattleboro back in the 90s. With his wife, Suzy, he is co-owner of the now iconic shop Vermont Artisan Designs and Kitchen Sink. And they're on the corner of Main and Elliott Streets, which brings together a wide and ever-changing collection of local art, craft, and community. Welcome, Greg.
Thanks, Wendy. Nice to be here.
It's great to have you on the show. I know this is a busy time of year for you, and I'd love to know a little bit about where you were born, because it wasn't around here.
You're right.
It was somewhere else.
You're right. I was born in Illinois. My granddad was born in this area, and he left the area when he was around 16 to find deeper dirt where he didn't have to build stone walls before planting crops in the spring. He wound up in Illinois and Indiana, right on the border, down near Champaign, in a place called, I was born in Danville, Illinois, and never knew Granddad, but my dad and I were both born in Danville and lived there for a while.
So you were born mid-century in the Midwest.
Right.
Yeah, that's, there's a lot to be said for that.
We're grateful.
Yeah.
We lived in town, but Granddad had a farm and he passed that on to Dad, so Dad would go out. We had someone else farm it for us, but Dad worked at Sears, actually. Oh. And so we would go out to the farm on weekends, but other than that, lived in town.
Yeah. So, but you had that rural influence as well.
Yeah. That was nice.
Yeah, I'll bet. Animals?
At Mom's place, we had horses and cattle.
Oh.
And a few other animals around out there, but through the years, that was, again, mostly weekends. That was her dad's place, and my uncle lived out there and helped out.
Yeah, and gradually it phased out. They phased out the farming. Yeah, yeah. When you were a kid, you had a paper route.
I did, yeah. First paper route was, I think I was 8 years old or something, and actually continued that through high school, and then got a scholarship from Gannett, the newspaper company, to go to school. Normal kid, sports and scouts and that type thing through high school. And then went to the University of Missouri to study journalism, or at least try it out and see what I thought.
I love that, having a paper route and then going into journalism. It just, from the frying pan into the fire, right?
I went to school to Missouri for a couple of years. Yeah. And then it was draft time and time of Vietnam. Yeah. And I'd been in ROTC and decided that rather than wait and get drafted, I would enlist. And so I enlisted and served in the Army for almost 3 years, and then went back to school after that. And that's when the journalism school was available.
Could you talk a little bit about your time in the Army? Because it was an amazing time in our lives, late 60s. And so you were, as you said, you were ROTC?
I was in ROTC, but I didn't continue that. When I signed up to go into the Defense Information School, which was sort of like the Army's and all the armed services information school or journalism school. And so that was at Fort Benjamin Harrison in Indiana. And our group, they had cycles for the various classes that went through DINFOS, it was called, Defense Information School. Had one class that would go to Vietnam, the next class would go to Korea, and the next class would go to Germany. And our class was in line to go to Vietnam, or in the cycle.
Uh-huh.
But when we got our orders, I was in a group that was assigned to Germany, and so he said thank you, and it was one of those things that a lot of friends went to Vietnam,
Yeah.
and a lot didn't come back, unfortunately.
Yeah. Boy, that's like a roll of the dice right there, right?
Just,
Amazing.
just really grateful.
Yeah.
When we got to Germany, we got to Frankfurt, and they told us, your orders say you're supposed to go here, but there is no such place. And so they didn't know what to do with us. We were assigned to a non-existent unit in Germany. And so they sent us down to headquarters down in Heidelberg, which was, again, very fortuitous, actually, because that was a nice place to be.
Yeah.
And I worked for the commanding general, doing a news summary for him every day for a couple of years, and then edited a magazine for the medical command in Europe for another 6 months or so before I came back.
Wow.
And then went back to school.
You go through journalism school, you become a journalist. And during that time, did you have your sights on going to newspapers or going into anything in particular?
I studied newspaper publishing and magazine writing and editing. And during that time, I got an internship with the Magazine Publishers Association and worked for Forbes for part of the summer, and Boy's Life, which was a scouting magazine for part of the summer. And then graduated after that and came back to Vermont to visit some friends who I'd met in Missouri during school. And came down, walked down the street, and it felt like home first day. So, and it's been home ever since, pretty much.
That's incredible, isn't it? Yeah. I think I mentioned this to you. So many people have said that. I felt it myself just driving through Brattleboro in, I think, 1969. And it took a while to get back here. But yeah, there's people who are attracted to Brattleboro usually end up coming and staying and living here. Yeah.
It works.
And I wanted to mention photography with you because I have noticed on Facebook and I think in other places you do beautiful photography.
Well, thanks. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Is that a hobby? Is it something you've worked at?
Well, something that I've just done through my life.
Yeah.
And it's fun. It gives you a different way to see things.
It does.
Or a reason to see things that you might not otherwise see. And a lot of things around here to shoot. So, and to remember things by.
Your time at the Reformer, you were, as you said, you did a little bit of everything. And this is when it was on Main Street.
Started on Main Street, in the Italian-American building, where Echo is now. And we were on 4 floors.
Wow, really?
Yeah. And it was hot type when I started at the Reformer still. Hadn't switched over to computers or anything. Right. So, and the presses were on the ground floor. Yeah. And then the hot metal was on the next floor up, and composing room, and then newsroom. And advertising was on the top level. Quite an interesting time.
Yes, very much so. I mean, just the way you delineated it like that, it's like, oh yeah, this is how newspapers were made. This is how printing was done at that time. And it took you 4 floors to do it. Yeah.
Which was fun.
Yeah.
And then it moved out. That was an afternoon paper at that point. And then it became a morning paper, and we built the building up on Putney Road, on Black Mountain Road, and moved out of town, which was sort of too bad in a way.
Yeah, but, I agree.
But, it happened, and the computer age had come, and it made it easier to do a lot of the typesetting, obviously, and photography and layout and the whole thing.
Right.
So it became a lot easier, a lot cleaner.
Yeah.
Operation.
And everybody was there on one floor.
On one floor.
Too, yeah, and parking was pretty easy.
Parking was very easy.
And Norman Runyon was there.
Norm was the editor who hired me, actually, to start with. Yeah, Norm had worked for UPI in London as the bureau chief over there, and, he had good credentials and was a guy who really liked to make people think. And his editorials, he would take a side that you wouldn't expect him to take, and people would go, "What?"
Yeah.
And, again, to create people's thought process, to really encourage them to think about perhaps other ways to see an issue than they might ordinarily be thinking.
That's very interesting. So it wasn't necessarily that these were his hard and fast opinions, but he was provoking or evoking thoughts from people. And
Yeah, that's what a lot of editorials do.
yeah, yeah,
And you try to keep the editorials out of the news.
yeah.
It's not, you don't put your editorial comments into a news story, or you shouldn't.
And therein lies the rub, right?
Therein lies the rub, what happens sometimes.
Yes.
And more, unfortunately,
Yeah.
today.
Well, what an interesting background for you to go to school for journalism and then, be boots on the ground here in a small town.
It felt good.
Yeah.
A lot of interesting people who were working at the Reformer.
Yeah.
Virginia Page, who had worked for Time magazine. George Carville was there, who was coming into the computer age with everybody.
Yep.
Ken Hall. Mark Tarnicki. Just a lot of good people who had gone on to various things.
Yeah, you enjoyed it.
Oh yeah, it was a good place to be.
So how did you make the leap or the jump or the sideways move to downtown and retail?
Well, Suzy and I got married. My wife was selling advertising at the paper, and I was on the editorial side. We got married in '86, and it was a good time to transition to something different. And we were able to buy Vermont Artisan Designs, which was at the location where Beatniks is now at that time. And so things, developed in different ways. Suzy wanted to start a kitchen store, and after a couple of years, we started that. We brought a tuxedo package in when Dexter's clothing store closed.
Yeah.
And moved across the street as J.E. Mann's closed down.
Yes.
And so, it's an interesting time.
Yeah.
Vermont Artisans was actually started as L.J. Sirkin on Elliott Street. It's been around 50 years now, a little bit more than, as a unit. It's grown a lot. It's changed a lot.
Yeah.
But we still focus on local and regional artists and craftspeople. It's all American made in the Vermont Artisans part. Kitchen sinks, a little bit more international, just because of the nature of it. Tuxedo is a little bit more international.
Yes.
But it's a diversity that continues sort of the department store theme in a way. I mean, we have various departments, but kitchen sink's its own entity. That was Suzy's idea, and that's been around 29 years now.
Wow.
And Vermont Artisans is its own entity.
Yeah.
The gallery upstairs is part of Vermont Artisans, and tuxedos are downstairs.
Yeah. It's so interesting, because superimposed over that is Mann's, my vision and memory of Mann's, which was all 3 floors as well. I think what you've done with the upstairs is really creative. It's really great, to have. How many little galleries do you have up there?
There are 11 small galleries.
11, is it that many? Wow.
Around the central one, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Which is a great way to view art, and crafts, but you get to go in and have moments, quieter moments, viewing things. That, I believe, Mann's, it used to be women's dresses and coats.
Upstairs, yeah.
Upstairs, yes.
Yeah. And then it transitioned into the trust department for Vermont National Bank.
Oh.
As Mann's was starting to go down.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the big question, Greg, what happened to the pneumatic tube?
They're still there.
Are they?
Most of them. We had to cut some of them out.
You did.
In order to create good space.
Yeah.
But they're still embedded in the walls.
They are. For those folks in the audience who might not know what pneumatic tubes are, and it's the younger people,
Well,
but for so many of us, department, when we were growing up, department stores had pneumatic tubes where there would be different counters, the cosmetics counter and the dress counter and all the different counters, and the customer would give the clerk the money. It would go into this little canister, and it would go into this tube that would go up into the department that handled the money.
Yeah,
and then the change would come back down.
Yeah, it's similar to the banks today when you have the
Really?
drive-up.
Oh, yeah,
the drive-up windows.
The drive-in, yeah, not quite as exciting.
Not quite as exciting, no.
For kids, it was something like like magic.
Yeah.
It was like magic.
Oh, and then it would come back to you
Yes,
with your change.
Yeah, I know. Greg, you became, as one could say, embedded in downtown. You'd been here with the paper, but also you were getting to know the town and the people in the town. So in addition to the retail spaces that you had, you were also starting to join in some of the community organizations. What were your first steps? What were your entryways there?
Well, actually, I joined the Winter Carnival Committee early on and was active with Big Brother, Big Sister, was on the Holton Home Board for a while. And as we began to do business downtown, I was encouraged to run for the select board. And on a lark, not really a lark, I did it. I think I was not supposed to win. I think the people who encouraged me wanted to have somebody else buffer somebody else who would win. And it turned out that I won. And actually served on the board for more years than I should have probably. But
how many years?
I think it was close to 12.
Yeah.
And you really learn a lot about the town that way. I had learned quite a bit about the town as a newspaper person and covering various aspects of the town.
Yeah.
And but it's something that everybody should do in a way.
Yeah.
It's something that you don't appreciate until you start doing things with the community. And the more that you do with the community, the more that you learn. And it's just kind of a nice thing that way. We've done that with a number of different things, with Rotary. Rotary gives to the community, and you work with a lot of people who really love the community.
Yeah, right.
And same way on the select board, everybody, you may not agree with everything that everybody does, but hopefully, you know that, or the goal is for, if you're going to serve on the select board, that you're serving the whole town as opposed to a special interest. Initially, when I went onto the board or ran for the board, I was going to represent the downtown. And you learn very, very quickly that you don't represent just the downtown. You represent everybody in the town.
Yeah.
And so you have to really take a look and really do some soul searching to keep on that track and remember that what your idea may be is not necessarily the right idea or what everybody else is thinking, but you want to listen to everybody's thought and then weigh what everybody has said and try and put that into a perspective for the best of the town.
Yes.
And, everybody hopefully on the board is doing that.
Yeah.
And again, if you're outside the board, you may not realize that.
That's right.
And you may not agree with anything or everything that's said.
Right.
But you have to hopefully understand that if they're doing their job right, they're doing it in the best interests of the town as a whole, as opposed to necessarily my idea or your idea.
That's right. And, much like a newspaper as well, it's the same kind of the integrity that you need, to go forth that way. It's very interesting. Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, it was a great time. I mean, we served with a lot of, really good people.
Yeah.
Charlie Miller, Bob Fagelson, people you may not know.
And Corky Elwell was
Corky
mostly town
Elwell
manager.
He was just transitioning out when I was coming in. And, Jerry Remillard was town manager for a while, and then Barb Sondag came on as I was leaving, or towards the end there. Steve Stidell, Dan Hannafy, Matt Spino. I mean, just,
Yeah.
a lot of people through the years.
I think that, you've seen...
Martha O'Connor.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, you've seen the evolution over these 30 some odd years.
It's been 50 for me, too.
50, okay,
Over
over
me.
the course of 50 years. You've seen the
52.
evolution of the town and downtown and the dynamics
Yeah.
also of downtown. And you've seen spaces downtown empty and fill up again and come and go, reconfiguring and transforming in one way or another. How do you see Greg, like, let's say, retail changing since you've been there?
Well, it went from, a cash register to computers.
Yep.
And it's gone from, with computers, it's gone to the internet and purchases over the internet for a lot of people. But at the same time, there's still bricks and mortar. And we're fortunate to have a vital downtown, or a town that still exists. We have people who come in daily and say, wow, Brattleboro's really kind of neat. It's got a downtown where we can actually see things and shop and get things that we can't buy online, or we can actually look at them and feel them, or see what we're buying. I think it's something where people really have to realize, if they want a downtown, that they have to support it.
Yeah.
About 25 years ago or so, we looked around, and there were, at one point somebody said there were 56 open spaces throughout town, and that was way too many, obviously. So Paul Borofsky and Steve Baker, Donna Simons from Candle in the Night, Davis Spencer and I got together and worked on a way to bring a heart, or focus on the heart of the town, which was trying to revitalize the place a little bit, and came up with something called Building a Better Brattleboro.
Yeah. And
that led to the River Garden being built, led to Plenty Park being made, led to the parking garage, led eventually to what is now the Downtown Brattleboro Alliance. It's something that really focuses on the town. As we were doing that, initially we were focusing on the whole of the town. Yeah. Because there were gaps everywhere, and the state came up with a program, a downtown program, that gave money to various towns if they would focus on their downtowns. And they did it initially to help Burlington build a parking garage. And in order to be eligible to do that, the town was actually trying to build a parking garage at that time. Or some people were trying to build a parking garage, and some people weren't. But we were able to focus on the downtown and do the building of Brattleboro. Yeah. And that allowed us to be eligible for $1 million from the state that went towards the parking garage over 10 years. And that allowed the parking garage to be built because the downtown needed parking. Yeah. And so, that was part of the process as well. Yeah. These are the workings, again, when you talk about the select board, we don't really know what goes on, if you haven't been there, and if you're not in the room, so to speak, you don't really know the workings, the things that it takes to get things done in a town. And I think that, we all complain about one thing or another, when behind every complaint is a whole story, right? And a whole history. Yeah. And, was the parking garage the best thing at the time? Probably was, in a way, but they didn't have quite enough money to really do what was needed to do to begin with, and to maintain it through the years. And so, today it's getting better again, but it's taken a long time to get better. Yeah. But But again, it helps. I mean, without parking, there's no place to put people.
That's right. That's right. I'm curious about your interest in art. You know, you, Vermont Artisan Designs has so many different artists. You've got huge inventory and very, very carefully and I think thoughtfully curated. Beautiful objects from many different people. Did you have an interest in art to begin with somewhere along the line?
Yeah, I'd grown up with antiques, and my mom really liked to go out and find different things that were, nice. And Suzy, my wife, her mother had Chesterfield Fabrics. She was a designer.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And Suzy was brought up that way, and she's influenced me a lot in art as well. So, so I appreciate that. And I've grown through the years to understand more than I did initially.
I'll bet. Yeah.
And hopefully you continue to grow.
Yeah.
That's part of the joy of being in town and being alive. I mean, you want to continue to learn.
That's right.
And again, one of the best things about the town is the library. And wherever I am, I really look at the town's library to see what the town is going to be like. I mean, we've had so many good things in this town. Good librarians, but good libraries. We had World Learning, which started out as the Experiment in International Living, which, made this really a cosmopolitan small town.
Yes.
For many, many years, and brought many people from all over the world to here. It's a really a wonderful place to be, and it's developed through the years. I don't think we're going to lose any of that. We're losing parts of it, but we have to be careful about not losing more of it, and continue to remember that we have so many opportunities to reach out to all sorts of people throughout our community and help them in whatever way, but also realize that we still have an opportunity to be an international community as well.
Yeah, that's very well said. And it's the appreciation as well for all those different people and the cultures and the cultural things that they're bringing to us, and that's something to keep in mind. And I think also that where you are situated, you get to see a lot of that. You get to see a lot of folks coming and going.
Well, the Afghan community, the refugees who've come, they're, it's amazing what they can do and what they have to do to be here. But Rotary has helped with that as well, that project. And again, many, many opportunities for people. And, just encourage people to be active in no matter what. To get a sense of your community and what your community can do for whoever.
That's right, because we are all one community. Yeah, all different pieces. Greg, thank you.
I'm not sure where we went, but...
Hey, we went around the block.
Well, thank you.
Thanks so much. It's great to hear your take on all of this, and also to hear a little bit of your past and how you got here.
Well, it's home, so... Yeah,
it is.
Thank you for what you do.
Well, it's great to have you here. It's great to have you in the community. Thanks to all of you for being with us today, too, and to hear some of these great stories. Again, another slice of life in Brattleboro and the people who are making it the fabulous community that it is, continues to be, and will continue to be. Thanks for being with us. We will see you next time.